It's been over a year since my wife started cheating on me with Lucas Barnes. I don't quite understand why I let this drag on for so long. Maybe I was too comfortable to face it. Once I knew what was happening, I found myself strangely impassive. I just waited in silence, knowing that one day she would serve me with divorce papers, and I did nothing to prepare myself for it, other than mentally accepting the inevitable. I was resigned to the fact that she would take half of all the property we had accumulated together. She could have the house and the furniture, which were appraised at less than the mortgage, and anyway, we'd only saved enough to send our daughter, Sandra, to college for 4 years, and in 3 more years I'd have a vested right to the company, and she'd probably get a piece of that, too, with Penny being wary of her affair. Things were moving fast. Sandra was off to her first semester at Penn State, and for the first time in 18 years it was just Penny and me left in the house. Normally, this could have been an opportunity for a couple to reconnect sexually, but that wasn't the case for us. Penny was always too tired or too busy, and I couldn't care less anymore. However, this message caught my attention. "Hi, this is Harry Hernandez. Your watch engraving is complete and ready for you to pick up. Thanks. Curious, I've never worn a watch and don't intend to start." Penny has no reason to want an engraved watch. She uses her cell phone to check the time, but something prompted me to investigate. I rarely snooped into Penny's belongings, but today was different. I found an engraved watch in her purse. I found a receipt from the jewelry store detailing a Carrera Tank Hour watch, engraved on the black alligator strap, "Forever a Penny 43." I replaced the receipt and grabbed a cold beer and contemplated it. It was obvious that the watch wasn't for me. Penny walked into the living room just as I was going outside to mow the lawn. Mowing the lawn took twice as long as it took me to mow the lawn, which gave me plenty of time to get to it. Which gave me plenty of time for contemplation. I kicked myself for putting it off for an entire year, but I was relieved when I finally made up my mind. She came home around lunch on Sunday and we chatted cordially, but the conversation was minimal. Without hesitation, I took a week's vacation and notified personnel of my willingness to transfer to the Baltimore office, even though I had previously declined the transfer because Penny and Sandra did not want to move. I moved all my stuff into a small apartment near the office, and on Tuesday, I gave Penny the divorce papers, and on Wednesday, she called me. "Thomas, and you want to explain? I should have signed it a long time ago. You know, sign the papers and everything is right. I'm the one who loses out. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. You don't give me any support. I've been giving you 20 years. You've given me nothing, and if I include alimony, it's only until you're married, and I think it's a waste of time because now it's all going to be over in 90 days, and if you want to change things, I can assure you it will take over a year. I know you're moving. Who told you that? I know the answer now. Does it even matter?" This was a great opportunity for me to guilt trip her, but I refused to let her get away with it, and I cleared my desk as soon as I got to work on Friday, which caught everyone off guard, and some of the guys expressed disappointment that they didn't get to have a formal goodbye party, and I can't imagine how she didn't know, because things have been strained between us for a long time. I feel like she understands how I feel. I turned on the radio. Lady Gaga. Who the hell is Lady Gaga? The new job was a breeze, to say the least, and I was clearly more than competent, which reassured my team of my ability and confidence. I kept in touch with Sandra and she told me anything she could about her mother Lucas. Just a week after I left, she and Penny moved into our house. Sandra wasn't happy about this and I couldn't blame her. Penny agreed to all the terms of the divorce without even hiring her own solicitor. Everything was going smoothly and according to plan. All I had to do now was wait. I decided to take a 10-day Caribbean cruise. I'm not a big fan of cruises, but this one was a must. The weekend before I left, I caught up with some old friends of the family in Atlantic City, where I treated them to wine, food and entertainment. At times, it seemed like I was being courted by at least 3 single women, although I wasn't entirely sure if they were single or not. I took full advantage of the ports of call to break up the monotony. His body was found in a Pennsylvania roadside rest area where he appeared to have been brutally beaten with a baseball bat and succumbed to his injuries en route to the hospital. Fortunately, it took the local police less than 30 minutes to confirm my alibi that I'd been out on the water for the past 10 days. And the Pennsylvania State Police quickly concluded that there was no need for further investigation into my involvement in the case. Sandra had told me about my crew plans to her mother, who told me that Penny had frantically tried to contact me because she knew I didn't like cruising, and Penny's insistence only made me more worried. I immediately called Sandra back. "Sandra, I just got back from the cruise. What the hell happened?" "He was beaten to death on the highway near Downingtown, and then no one could save him." "When did this happen?" "Last Thursday." She said she wanted to terminate the divorce. "It wouldn't have happened if I'd waited a few more days." The following week there was a steady stream of phone calls from Penny and attorney Winstead. I was in Atlantic City for 3 days. Before I got home I called my attorney and he congratulated me on my successful attempt to elude Penny's attempts to stop the divorce and then joked about asking for an extra $10,000. After a brief moment of embarrassment he burst into a fit of laughter. It was only a joke, but it did lighten the mood. It eased the mood a bit, and instead of asking for money, he asked for a steak dinner, which was worth it, although I still think the joke was lame. I never understood why the police stopped investigating Barnes and why they never contacted me again. Sandra called to offer her congratulations but was as wary as a child would be of a parent's separation. Penny realized she was facing serious financial problems and I couldn't help but smile as I hung up the phone. I never contacted Penny again for the next 2 years. I didn't stalk her or inquire about her activities. I spoke to Sandra on the phone every month, but we both politely avoided talking about Penny. All I knew was that she had mortgaged her house to the bank and was now working at a women's clothing store in a local mall. Penny did mention to Sandra that Lucas had 2 insurance policies with his mother as the beneficiary, but it seemed that Mother Barnes wasn't willing to share that with me. I went on a couple of dinner dates with her, but there was no sign of romance. Later that year, Sandra announced that her wedding would be in June. I met her fiancé a couple of times, and was totally supportive of her choices. The wedding was planned for Harrisburg, his hometown, and of course, Dad would be picking up the tab for most of the expenses. She grudgingly agreed. I didn't want any drama on my daughter's wedding day, but I knew that being with Penny would increase the possibility of drama, except for going to try on dresses. Penny and her companions were seated on the far left of the main table, while I sat on the far right, and I waited patiently for the moment to toast Bree's father, and as I stood up and prepared to speak, I gestured with my hand, a silly little prank, but one I hoped would go according to plan. As I raised my left arm, the sleeve of my gown slipped down revealing a TED watch with a black alligator strap. When I finally sat down, I couldn't help but smile a big smile as Penny noticed my watch and all the planning paid off. I played the role of a dutiful father for another hour and then quietly slipped back to my hotel room. I was sleep-deprived that night. I couldn't be sure of Penny's reaction. If she did nothing it meant that she had accepted her fate and moved on, but if she was still nagging I might expect the arrival of some uninvited guests. The answer appeared at 6:00 a.m. Thomas Mr. Harris, 2 men in dark suits stood in front of my house. I couldn't help but think of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones and the Man in Black. I smiled and responded, "Yes, can I help you?" I gestured for them to sit down as I quickly pulled on my pants. I had been waiting for them and I should have been dressed before they reached the hotel room. As they came in I asked, "Gentlemen, your Thomas Harris attended the wedding of Stuart Harris yesterday?" One of them asked. "Indeed it was Sandra Harris. Now Stuart is my daughter," I confirmed. "We received a call that you were wearing an expensive Howard watch at the reception." I countered, "Mr. Harris, we'd like to keep things simple. Can you answer the question?" The first person insisted, "Well, I bought the watch on eBay. Now tell me why you want to know." The second guy explains, "I'm sure I have a lot of these watches. Can you be more specific?" I questioned them further. They seemed disturbed and I got the feeling they were considering dragging me into some government building to continue the conversation. "Mr. Harris, do you know a man named Lucas Barnes?" "Of course I do. I used to work with him. He was the one who had an affair with my wife which eventually led to our divorce." "Mr. Barnes was in possession of a watch identical to this one at the time of his murder. How do you know that the silence of my 2 visitors is due to the fact that this watch was found at the time of his death?" They both shook their heads, at the same time. "Do you think it could be his watch?" "How did she know it was his?" She hesitated and said she bought it for him. "Maybe you should talk to her," but she didn't answer. "That's it, that's all you have?" I took a folded piece of paper out of my wallet and handed it over. The lead guy scanned it between the paper and me. "It's from eBay. It says you paid $49 for the watch, but I have to pay $5 for shipping." When I pulled it out the second man in the suit looked at it carefully, and then turned to his partner and it said, "Take how gentleman did my wife buy a Tag Howard wash. Take how gentleman did my wife buy a Tag Howard wash watch for Mr. Barnes," or "Take how gentleman did my wife buy a Tag Howard shuffle watch." Was it for Mr. Barnes, or did she buy him a Howard Shuffle? There was a look of dismay on their faces that things hadn't gone according to plan. Could we see the back of the watch? Mr. Harris, would you like to check the engraving? They got up and left. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Harris. Have a safe trip. After they left, I closed the door and glanced at my watch. I was glad I chose to spend the extra $20 to have it engraved. Driving back to Baltimore, I knew my wife was still upset with me for the way I handled the situation. I couldn't exactly blame her, but I hoped she would show some remorse. I threw the TIG-hour watch out the car window, stuck my hand in the glove compartment to tell the difference between the real thing and the fake just by touch, and put on the real thing. As old Blue Eyes would say, thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please consider bookmarking and subscribing, and if you haven't already, feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below.